Hello, I'm Adam Pacitti from Cultaholic Wrestling, and you are watching Tom Talks Rubbish. It's the place for interviews, wrestling reviews, and so much more.
Sure, you subscribe to Tom Talks Rubbish. I highly recommend you subscribe here first.
What's going on, guys? It's your boy, Tom Talks Rubbish, and today I'm back with another interview. This time, I'm joined by SP3 from Wrestling Daily. So welcome to the show.
Thank you for having me. I appreciate you asking me to do this interview and being on your YouTube channel. I've seen you've done other interviews with folks from the wrestling media and, of course, Wrestling Daily. So I'm honored to be here.
Yeah, I'm at the point where I'm just asking people, and if they want to come on, awesome. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
So if we take this... Sorry, man. Continue.
No, I was like, you're doing the game. That's what the game of doing interviews is all about, is putting yourself out there in action.
Exactly. And it's like, I'm still at the point, and this isn't going to be about me for the entire hour, so I apologize, but I'm like, this is fun. So I'm at the point where it's fun.
Great.
Anyway, so if we take this back, how did you first get into wrestling?
How did I get into wrestling? Wrestling was a part of my family from when I was very young. My cousins used to all play the video games, whether it be the old WrestleMania, the arcade game, or even earlier stuff like WrestleFest. My grandmother used to watch it. My earliest memory was my grandmother watching probably a Saturday night's main event, and it had Andre the Giant and Hulk Hogan on it. And I was probably maybe 1-2 years old. I was very young, and that started everything. Just growing up in my grandmother's house with my cousins that were into professional wrestling. My uncle was into wrestling. He used to have action figures on his wall and everything. It was something that was a part of my family, so it's kind of in my blood to be a wrestling fan. So I started very young.
I picture it as almost how normal families sounds wrong, but other families would watch football on a Sunday. I picture you lot all having a gathering of people for pay-per-views and stuff like that.
Yeah, I remember SummerSlam 1994. One of my cousins, they live over in Florida, and he had us all the cousins, not just the ones that was at my grandmother's house, the ones that were in Florida with him, all come over, and we all watched SummerSlam 1994. And, some of my cousins were rooting for Bret Hart. Some of my cousins were rooting for Owen Hart and the steel cage match. We all were rooting for the real Undertaker over fake Undertaker. But that's the first big pay-per-view gathering as a family that I remember having.
You just answered two of my follow-up questions there. I was just going to ask you memories from that 94 card, to be honest.
Oh man, Brett and Owen is just that's the rivalry that really made me kind of obsessed with wrestling in a lot of ways. Just watching it over and over again. I love Bret Hart, but I just love the story of the little brother versus the older brother, and it was just so relatable that anyone could understand it, even if you didn't have a brother. I didn't have a brother, so I can even relate to that. So I thought that feud was just awesome. Razor Ramon and Diesel was another good match on that card. It's very underrated. I also gotta always mention Bull Nakano versus Alunda Blaze. 1994 was a good year for my memory as far as nostalgia. That's the first full year that I could remember off the top of my head.
That's cool. So, but obviously 1994, 1995 are what we would call the wrestling doldrums, if you know what I mean.
Yeah.
Where wrestling took a turn. That's hard to say for some reason. So where do you hold that in high regard though? Because that was when you first got into it, do you think?
I mean, I hold most of like the early 90s in high regard because although like the business wasn't the greatest, especially in comparison to what they did in the 80s and what they eventually would do in like the 2000s and during the Attitude Era, I still admire it because that's what made me a fan. That's what I grew up on. I remember being really young at my grandmother's house again, and she not only just watching WWF and showing me Saturday Night's Main Event or WWF Superstars or Wrestling Challenge. She showed me TBS at like later on in the evening when the rest of my cousins got picked up and my mom's working late and I'm still there with grandma. She puts on TBS and she's like, "Oh, this is WCW. This is different from your WWF." So I kind of got exposed to not just one wrestling promotion, and that kind of made me even more of a fan because what I was seeing in WWF was totally different from what I was seeing in WCW. And then when eventually I'm like 8, 9 years old and I discover ECW and I'm like, oh, this is just completely different. So I kind of appreciate the 90s in a different way than other fans would, regardless of how the business was for money.
Do you think if, say, you'd got into the wrestling in, say, I'm just going to pick a year off the top of my head, 2010, you would appreciate the 90s as much?
Probably not, because I would not be looking at it from being a fan in the moment. I'm looking at it from retrospect. A lot of different things from retrospect do not look as good. A lot of the Attitude Era had a lot of different angles that don't look good in retrospect that were great in my minds when I was originally watching it. And a lot of people, the stuff that we learned later on and that you would learn if you just became a fan in 2010, you would know about your Chris Benoit's, you would know about the Hulk Hogan's and all the controversies that they have outside of the ring, where you can't look back on the 90s and their work there and have any type of appreciation for it, because all you know is what you've already been told when you become a fan then. So to live through it and to look at it back is totally different. And I'm the same way because, my grandfather, my grandmother probably had a greater appreciation for Bruno Sammartino. I went back and I watched a lot of his stuff, but I don't have that type of appreciation for him because I didn't live through it and it didn't age as well as other stuff or the guys that I kind of grew up on, like a Macho Man Randy Savage, a Bret Hart, who I feel their work is timeless, and that if you're a fan in 2010, you can watch their work and have some type of appreciation for it. So it depends on what you like in wrestling, honestly.
Yeah, I'd agree with that. So if we go into like your consumption of wrestling now, what are you required to watch for like Wrestling Daily and other work? And then what would you choose to watch if you were outside of the wrestling work bubble and just as a fan?
Well, my number one thing in wrestling media, well, outside of wrestling media, of course, my family. I have a beautiful wife, two twins, going to be 2 years old. But when you go
Oh,
into, thank you, when you go into the wrestling media bubble, my number one thing is Tru Heel Heat. That's my kind of my brand, my YouTube channel that I built with my friends, and that's kind of the reason why I've gotten opportunities with Wrestle Talk, Wrestling Daily, Sports Heater Wrestling. So with Tru Heel Heat, we do a weekly podcast on Saturdays, 11:05 a.m. Eastern Time, 4:05 p.m. UK, where we cover all of the wrestling world. So I kind of have to watch all the WWE, your Raw, your SmackDown, your NXT, your AEW with your Dynamite, your Rampage, your Impact Wrestling. If New Japan has a bigger show, I watch that. If MLW has a bigger show, ROH, whatever it is, I kind of have to watch like the bigger shows and the weekly shows for wrestling with Tru Heel Heat. With my other than that, with like Wrestling Daily, I usually am on the Monday spot as well as the Wednesday spot. So with Wednesday, I've been there for over a year now. Wrestling Daily, over 1 year old, so I'm happy to say that here. I've always had to watch kind of NXT since they moved to Tuesdays, so that's kind of what I've had to watch because over time I didn't want to watch that too much, but I've had to with Wrestling Daily, and now being in the Monday spot, you kind of have to watch what's going on throughout the weekend. So I try to watch, Rampage and SmackDown. I already do that with Sports Keto Wrestling where I do the review show after Rampage with Dutch Mantel, aka Zep Coulter from WWE fame, as well as Rick Ucchino. So we watch those live. We do the review right after, and Wrestling Daily on Mondays. If there's a pay-per-view, I have to watch that as well.
So one thing I am curious to know about is like, what would you choose to watch if like you worked like a regular 9 to 5 job? What is the show that you would choose to watch?
AEW is kind of what my taste is at right now. They just kind of cater to every type of wrestling fan. They try to give you a little bit something for everyone, and I've kind of been a part of the journey. Like, I watched these guys from their time in Ring of Honor, because Ring of Honor had a lot of shows out here in New York, so I got to see the Young Bucks when they were kind of in the crossroads of their career and then made their rise in Ring of Honor before creating AEW. Got to see the journey on BTE. I was at All In, the kind of the genesis of AEW as well, so I kind of have a different connection to AEW than I've ever had with any promotion. The only thing close to that has ever been like Ring of Honor. Ring of Honor has always been something that I've always chose to watch, which makes me sad about the latest bit of news. But AEW, if I had a 9 to 5 job that I had to focus on, plus with what I said before, with my family being my number one priority responsibility, probably AEW on Wednesday night, probably be the only thing I could probably squeeze in.
Fair enough. So, like, one thing I am curious about as well, and I realized I started the last question off with that as well, and I don't know why I did that. But anyway, is you mentioned your family quite a bit. How do you balance all the wrestling you still have to watch and still be a dad and stuff like that?
Well, it's a lot of compromise, finding time, and making my kids watch at an early age. And what my kids tend to enjoy, they're not really into the AEW or WWE. My kids enjoy New Japan, especially since the pandemic, because New Japan fans, because of the pandemic, they can't cheer, so all they do is like the clapping and stuff. My kids, that's that kind of the language that they know at this age. They're about to be 2 years old next March, but they do a bit of talking. They know how to say Baby Shark and Peppa Pig for what they want to watch. But as far as what I want to watch, if I'm watching New Japan and the fans are clapping, my daughter's like, my son just likes the different colors of the outfits, like Hiromu Takahashi and stuff. So they react to that more. Other than that, my daughter reacts to like the women's wrestling, like Sasha Banks or Thunder Rosa or Britt Baker or Bailey. She reacts to those because she's a little girl, so she reacts to the women on TV. And as far as like with my significant other, it's about balance. She will allow me to watch all this wrestling if I watch the 90 Day Fiance, and I enjoy my 90 Day Fiance because of her. So it's a give and take, but you gotta find the time is what I say I have to do nowadays.
Fair enough. So like, how did Tru Heel Heat come about then?
Tru Heel Heat came about WrestleMania 33 weekend. Me and a group of my friends had already been going to like a bunch of different like shows, whether it be like Ring of Honor, Impact Wrestling, over a couple of years. It was me and actually like my manager and my supervisor from Victoria's Secret when I worked there when I was 19 years old. We used to go to like a bunch of the different independent shows and the major promotions together. But then we all, as a group, a bunch of us went to WrestleMania 33, and we kind of talked about like all the different events that we went to and how people would want to like connect with us and talk to us, get to know what's our opinion on different matches, or we're making them laugh with the stuff we're saying in the crowd. So we talked about like starting a Facebook group and like building a community that way with the people that we were meeting at shows. And then we also talked about creating a podcast. And with our podcast, we wanted to bring like different exposure to not just WWE. What we saw with a lot of fan-made podcasts, or even like the major like YouTube channels. Like at that time, I was really big into like your woke culture, your cultaholic, your wrestle talk. We wanted to put like more representation of like wrestling fans don't just look one type of way. They can look any type of way. We'll have me, African American, one of my friends that's Hispanic, one of my other friends who's Indian, because wrestling is just a community of totally different people. It's like the United Nations. You can find a wrestling fan in India, in China. It doesn't matter where you go. And we wanted to do that, just like we said, we wanted to represent not just WWE. So from the Facebook group, we started doing the podcast live on our Facebook group. We got picked up by another bigger like Facebook page that aired our podcast on there before we started our YouTube channel in 2018. And we've been able to let it grow. It's at 1.7 thousand subscribers now. Hopefully getting to that 2K mark, which is our goal. But we don't only just do the flagship podcast now. It just started from one weekly. No, actually it was like one monthly podcast, which became bi-weekly, which became weekly. But now we do like a daily content where we do reviews for AEW, WWE, ROH, MLW, NWA. Like I said, we like to represent all of professional wrestling and all the professional wrestling fans.
Do you think that wrestling YouTubers, and this might be a bit of a controversial question, don't have as good as representation as they should?
No, because I don't think that a lot of opportunities have been out there like it is now for, up and comers who, like someone like me, I kind of had to put my foot in the door to get a lot of the opportunities that I was able to get. Like during the whole pandemic, Luke Owen wanted Wrestle Talk to kind of feature people outside of the Wrestle Talk bubble. And he put up a tweet, and I just responded to the tweet. I was like, hey, I'm interested, and sent him the link to the YouTube channel. And he just happened to click on it. He just happened to like, our personality, what we did on our YouTube channel, and asked me to come on the Wrestle Talk podcast, which kind of opened the doors to kind of being a part of the Wrestle Talk family. So it's all about putting your foot out there, but at the same time, yes, I think that creating representation on wrestling YouTube is very hard. So you have to work hard, but the people that want to create that representation have to work way harder, because there's so much equity out there. There's so many eyes out there, but they're only going to click that subscribe button and make you an actual success if you're putting in the work and they see you in enough places. So I think that, yeah, wrestling YouTube definitely needs more representation, and it's a very difficult thing to achieve though.
How do you feel like it can be achieved?
It's basically creating that opportunity for other people, because it can't just be, oh, I'm on, Wrestling Daily. That's it. That's over with. I commend everyone from Wrestle Talk, from Ollie Davis to Luke Owen to Alex McCarthy, who, those are kind of the Luke Owen and Ollie Davis are the brainchilds behind Wrestle Talk. But Alex, put his name, put his brand in front of Wrestling Daily, and wanted more representation and wanted diversity on Wrestling Daily. And he wanted me to be a part of that. He wanted Steph Chase to be a part of that, because it's not just about, race, it's also about gender, because a lot of the females in wrestling YouTube don't get the credit that they deserve. Steph Chase does amazing interviews. Denise Salcedo is one of the hardest working people, period, in all of media, not just wrestling media, in all of media. There's so many successful and talented women in this wrestling media game that don't get enough opportunities, don't get enough credit. And it's the same with African Americans, Hispanics, people of color. So it's all about, getting that opportunity. And that's why I said I commend the people at Wrestle Talk that kind of gave me a chance. And it didn't stop there. When Louis Dangor had to move on, go to Give Me Sports, we brought in Sadi Nyangi, who's so talented himself, such a hilarious guy, has such a big personality, and needed to be a part of wrestling media in some aspects. So I'm glad that he's a part of Wrestling Daily, and that we can share the screen together for Mocha Mondays every Monday on the Wrestling Daily YouTube channel. So it's about the people that are already in that circle. You have to open the door for everybody else. Like, you can't just open the door for people that look like you. You have to open the door for everyone that you don't see being represented. That's what it has to be. It's all about, you know, opening the door, because that's how I got my opportunities, and that's how anyone else is going to get theirs.
Yeah, it's like we were talking about before we hit the roll button on the camera. I'm still at the point where people are saying yes, and I'm still shocked. Does that make any sense?
Yeah.
Like,
No,
because I
it's
don't
gonna be
feel
like
like,
it's gonna be like that, because, you know, I get shocked myself when people say yes. So I 100% understand where you're coming from.
yeah. But enough about me, because I ramble enough on this channel. So if we talked a lot about your grandmother and stuff, so about getting you into wrestling. Was it she encouraged you, or was it you literally just saw what she was watching and sat down next to her, sort of thing?
Yeah, it was sort of, she was watching it and I kind of just sat down and started watching it with her. And that was kind of the thing with me and my other cousins. It was just something that she always had on, and that you kind of just were drawn to it in some way.
Fair enough. And I do apologize. My interviews do go all over the place.
No
Like,
worries.
I might be like, "Oh, we talked about this, but I've just thought of another question." Do you know what I mean?
No, I get it.
So going back to Tru Heel Heat and stuff like that, when was the decision made for we? Why was it just once a month to start off with, and then when was the decision made? Like, we're gonna do more content and eventually get to daily content.
Well, we made the decision to make it like bi-monthly, because we were all working kind of full-time jobs. We didn't want to like come out the gate and, you know, maybe something that we didn't like doing that much, or something that the chemistry wasn't there between the people that were first a part of it. We didn't want that type of commitment where we tell out the box, oh, we're doing this once you know, weekly, we're doing it live and stuff. We didn't want that type of responsibility, but we wanted to do it live. We knew that much. So we thought bi-monthly, I mean, the, you know, monthly would be the right way to go about it. And then when we saw that people were actually enjoying what we had to say, were being entertained, we went to, you know, bi-weekly, which was, you know, twice a month. And then from there, it just, we got more success. And then also, you know, the pandemic had a lot to do with doing it weekly, just helped us out with, you know, dealing with the pandemic. And it was kind of an escape. And we created more content in the pandemic than we did before the pandemic. So, you know, it was something that we're very proud of, that we didn't let that be a setback. And that was kind of like a catapult for where we are today.
With the pandemic, and you said you created more content than you did before it, was that because you had more time on your hands, or yeah, was that basically because you had more time on your hands?
Yeah, for me, I know I can only speak to for myself personally, not anyone else, you know, on the YouTube channel. But for me personally, I lost the job at the beginning of the pandemic that I had just got promoted to like management for. So I was kind of in a place where I was just like, I need an escape. I needed to be on camera because it was something that I enjoyed to do, and something that, you know, I used the opportunities that I was getting at work to kind of help that role, because that was what I really wanted to do. So to kind of just have nothing with the job. I had just had my first children, twins, with my significant other, with the love of my life. So it was just like, man. And I was maybe just a few weeks away from you know, losing my dad. So it was a lot going on at once, between like maybe like a 2-3 week thing. And I was just like, you know what, I need to just focus on one thing and just commit to that. And that was creating content. You know, we were doing the weekly podcast during the pandemic. Then we were just like, you know, Dark Side of the Ring came out. We were like, oh, we're going to start doing reviews for that. We had already started different reviews with everybody else, but we kind of got into like a better flow of things. So I think that the pandemic kind of helped out to give a lot of people an escape, and me especially, I can say for sure it did.
Like, this might sound like a very dumb question, but the amount of people that I've spoke to that have said pandemic sucked, we didn't benefit from it at all. But would you say that, like, Tru Heel Heat benefited from the pandemic in some ways, and not to make light of the pandemic, obviously.
No, not to make light of the pandemic, because a lot of people, lost people that they were very close to. A lot of people lost their lives, and it was something very serious. But we did not try to treat it as a setback. I think that we kind of just focused in. 6 months before the pandemic started, we decided to do more daily content. Separate review shows for all.
Oh, my bad. I thought you did it because of the pandemic.
No. We did the weekly. We did Tru Heel Heat weekly because of the pandemic. We had already been doing daily content on YouTube 6 months prior to that, but it was kind of at that kind of experiment phase at that point. We really got into the flow was because of the pandemic. People had more time to commit, and we just started just trying new things out and creating a chemistry between the people that we have a part of our team. So yeah, I mean, I never want to make light of the pandemic, and it's something that, like I said, I went through a lot. I had my first kids. I lost my father. I had a lot of people around me that were sick at the time. I had to deal with a lot with, myself and my health and keeping me safe. So trust me, I would never make light of the pandemic, but to say that the pandemic in some way did benefit the Tru Heel Heat YouTube channel, I 100% agree.
No, that was more of for the YouTube comments, like me saying we're not making light of the pandemic.
Oh yeah, I mean? Absolutely.
Definitely. So where do you want to? Actually, I'll ask you about Wrestling Daily first. How did you may have covered that in when we were talking about representation and stuff, but how did you get into Wrestling Daily first of all, and how were you brought on?
Well, basically, yeah, like I was saying, Alex McCarthy had found out about me through the Tru Heel Heat YouTube channel during the pandemic. Not only was I doing, the weekly podcast, Dark Side of the Ring review, I was I wanted to do more interviews. So I did interviews with wrestlers Royce Isaacs, AJ Kirsch, and I actually reached out to Alex because I really enjoyed Alex's presence on social media. I had gotten more into Twitter because I was never really a big Twitter guy. I'm more of a Facebook
Me neither
guy.
Till I started this.
See, yeah, that's basically how it works. So, but the pandemic made me kind of focus more on Twitter, and out of the wrestling media, I really enjoyed Alex's presence because he was always very positive. He always put out a great message, and I liked his opinion on his lot of stuff because I agreed with a lot of him, a lot of what he said on Twitter. So I reached out to him for an interview. I had maybe an hour interview with him where we talked about, how he got into professional wrestling, how he got into journalism, his past in football. And, what we found out is that we had a lot in common, and we had a very good chemistry, even from that initial interview there. And he kind of held on to it. So when Wrestle Talk reached out to him to create Wrestling Daily, like I said, they kind of, he said the story out, so I don't feel bad saying it out or saying a spilling the beans.
He may have said it on my channel because he's been on before.
Yeah, so they wanted him to just do it with Louis Dan Gore, but he wanted more diversity. He wanted more representation on something that he was going to have his name on. So, he knew of Steph Chase's work. She's doing great stuff in the UK for Digital Spy, and he wanted her because he knows that she has a great opinion. She's open, she's outspoken as hell, and he wanted me because he thought I was entertaining. He thought that we had a good chemistry, and that's how I kind of got implemented into the lineup for Wrestling Daily. And over a year now, it's been quite a journey. I'm not only just doing a lot of the on-camera stuff, I do a lot of back end, behind the scenes stuff for the Wrestling Daily YouTube channel. So it's something that I kind of have put more, a bit of responsibility over there as well, not just on Tru Heel Heat, but Wrestling Daily. I want to see that grow, hit our goal of 15K. So 2K and 15K are stuff that you will hear from me a lot because it's two goals that we're trying to meet before the end of the year.
500 for me, just to throw
there
that
you
out
go.
there. Just to throw that out there.
Hey, if you're watching this interview right now, I don't know why you haven't already. This man's asking very good questions. Hit that subscribe button. Why not? Come on.
We are 20 at time of recording. We are 20 away.
Let's get this. When this interview comes out, we better hit that 500.
I'm gonna be honest, man. This isn't gonna go out for quite a while. Probably till like early next year.
Well, we better be at 500 then, man. Like, damn.
Definitely.
Like,
Purely because, and this makes me sound proper big-headed, but I have content as dumb as that. Do you know what I mean?
yes. You're doing good. You're doing consistent content. That's what it's all about, man.
Because I'm only a weekly interview. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
I didn't want to have loads and then be like, oh, sugar, I haven't got some for the next few weeks.
No, I definitely understand. I used to be the same way before my work schedule got a little bit more busy.
Yeah, I appreciate that. But back to your good self and Wrestling Daily.
Yeah.
Who, out of everyone, do you work with the same co-host on Mondays and Wednesdays, or is it two different co-hosts?
No, it's two different co-hosts. On Monday, it's Mocha Monday with myself and Sati Nyangi, and on Wednesday, I'm with Alex McCarthy, the OG Daily Boys. Me and Alex, we love to have a good time over there. Tuesday is with Alex and Sat. Thursday is with Alex and Stephanie Chase, and then on Fridays, it's Alex and a special guest.
So I should have asked this before, really. But who, out of the two that you mainly work with, who do you feel like you have the better chemistry with?
I would say Alex, only because we've been going at it a little bit longer and we kind of had that instant chemistry with one another. Like I said, from that interview, go out of your way to watch that Tru Heel's BTR with Alex McCarthy, and we just have a lot in common. And our birthdays are only like 6 days apart, so I think it's the Taurus in us, as well as a lot of things that we think like-minded about. It makes it difficult to do like debates and stuff because we usually agree, but we just have a natural chemistry where we can just talk about wrestling for hours, or we could just talk about music or something else or basketball, and we could probably go an hour with that as well.
Fair enough.
But that is not taking anything away from the chemistry that has been created between me and Sat, as well as me and Steph Chase. I've done a lot of great work with Steph Chase, whether it be on Wrestling Daily when I have to fill in for like Alex or Louie or Sat, and I've gotten to share the screen with Steph. I've done great work with her over on her YouTube channel. She does probably the best wrestling content in wrestling media on AEW. If you want to know about AEW, if you want to hear someone who's very enthusiastic about it, check out Steph Chase's YouTube channel. I've also had her on the Tru Heel Heat YouTube channel. She's been on our flagship podcast plenty of times talking about AEW as well as New Japan and the world of professional wrestling. So I kind of have different chemistry with all of them, but I say Alex is the best because that's where it all started from, and it kind of stemmed off from all of that.
Okay, like I assume you spent time with all of them off camera, correct? Like when the things aren't recording.
Yes.
So how different would you say your on-camera chemistry is from, say, your off-camera?
Well, I would know better from meeting somebody in person. Like me and Steph, we have good chemistry when we're on camera together, and we actually got to meet each other during Full Gear weekend, and I was just like, yeah, she's awesome. She's still,
Were you there?
still the same
Curiosity.
Yes, I was at Full Gear. I was at Full Gear weekend. So
I hate you and want to be you.
Please don't. It was kind of cool, but she's a very nice person, and we got to talk about wrestling there, and that was cool. And I get the opportunity to meet Alex in person because he's coming to New York for Survivor Series weekend, so I kind of can tell better there. But yeah, I think whenever we're off camera and we just start talking, without talking about whatever the titular news is or whatever happened in wrestling, I think our chemistry is still good outside of the off camera.
But I'm curious how different it is, like, or do you not really know yet?
Yeah, like I said, I won't really know for sure until I actually meet you in person. I think the only thing that was like different with Steph is like not seeing her like on a screen. Like that's the only like like not to sound like the obvious, but seeing somebody through a screen and actually seeing them in person is like a little bit different there. But I wouldn't say there's any big differences. I think that you see very genuine chemistry when you see us on camera.
Fair enough. So, talking of on camera, is there something that you have to do to get sort of amped up to do a review or amped up to do Wrestling Daily? I don't want to say get into character, but you know what I'm trying to say. Like
Become SP3. Nah.
No, not like that, but like, I'm trying to figure out how to phrase it because I'm not very good at phrasing things. And I do apologize. Like, is it
Get
something
in the
you have
zone.
to get in the zone sort of thing?
One things that I like to do is always get a kiss from my family. I know it sounds corny. I know it sounds very lame, but I like to, get a kiss from my son, my daughter, my wife. And yeah, just I want to know that they are, they care if I have a good show or not. That type of like feeling that love before you go on camera makes you come out on camera with a smile on your face. Like I said, you see a lot of my genuine self, and it gets me in trouble a lot. And I get called stuff like AEW shill, or I'm always bad mouthing somebody. So
Bro, I'm an AEW show, so this is a safe place.
this is a safe place for me. Thank the Lord. Thank the Lord. But I always say, I love the WWE. That's why I'm a fan. Like, I don't understand why people have to be a shill or pro this, anti that. I am for professional wrestling. I love professional wrestling, but I say like getting some love from my family is what I need to get in the zone and have a smile on my face before I get on camera usually.
Fair enough. So what I was going to say something else then, but completely lost my train of thought. I do apologize.
Okay.
Come on, brain, work. So like it's gone. Let me start again. So like if I said to you, you have to pick between Tru Heel Heat or Wrestling Daily, which one?
Ooh, I gotta go with Tru Heel Heat. Tru Heel Heat is the home. Like I would not be on Wrestling Daily today if it wasn't for Tru Heel Heat. So that's where it all started, and I kind of have to do a lot with it because I do like hosting the flagship podcast. I host another show where we go back and watch the Monday Night Wars. I do back end stuff, adding ads. I write the script for our flagship podcast. So there's a lot that goes into that. And that's my, when it comes to wrestling media and doing this on camera stuff, Tru Heel Heat is my first love, but
that's your baby sort of thing.
That's my baby. Wrestling Daily is like my niece and nephew, and I love my niece and nephew. I got a picture of my nephew, my youngest nephew, in my wallet still because I love my niece and I love my nephews. That's my niece, Wrestling Daily. So I love Wrestling Daily. So nothing against that at all.
Fair enough. So to wrap this up, because we've been going about 40 minutes, believe it or not, man.
Hasn't felt like it, man. That's how you know this man is good. So if he's at 500 subscribers, I want it to be 550 after you watch this interview.
So what was I going to say? I'm going to go into a segment now that I like to call generic wrestling questions, where essentially these are questions you probably get asked a lot, but just for my curiosity, they're questions that I want to know, if you know what I mean.
Got you.
And they're sort of quick fire. So first answer off the top of your head.
Cool. Sounds good.
Favorite superstar of all time.
Favorite superstar of all time, Bryan Danielson.
Seriously? No, That wasn't a dig, but like, really?
I'm guessing you meant favorite wrestler of all time. I didn't know if you specifically.
Yeah, favorite wrestler of all time.
Yeah, it's Bryan Danielson. I got to see him from the bottom in like Ring of Honor in front of just like 100 other people besides me, all the way to WrestleMania. Now doing great stuff in AEW. It's someone that I can generally say I started from the bottom and now he's here. So yeah, it's always going to be Bryan Danielson. I've had others throughout the years: Kurt Angle, The Rock, Shawn Michaels, but I would say right now, 2021, favorite wrestler of all time, Bryan Danielson.
This isn't a generic question, but a follow-up question to Bryan Danielson. Favorite version of Bryan Danielson?
The OG American Dragon in Ring of Honor, where he cuts a promo after he tore his shoulder and he's about to verse Kenta at Glory by Honor 2006, and he cuts the promo that's called "Pain is Temporary, but Pride is Forever." It's one of the greatest independent promos that you will ever see, and it was proof positive that Bryan Danielson had promo skills way before he got to WWE.
One thing, like, that's one thing I will say. I haven't seen a lot of his early independent work, but I've seen that promo. Like, and I love that promo.
Classic.
So, but I don't know if you agree with me on this with Bryan Danielson, but I feel like this version that we've got currently is the best of both worlds almost, because he's got like the WWE charisma that I wouldn't say was lacking in Ring of Honor, but was worked on obviously a bit more in WWE. And then he's gone back to his American Dragon technical wrestling style.
Yeah, I would agree with you. It's because it's been so short, like he only debuted in September. That's why I can't put it as like number one, but it's definitely up there. I would put it maybe in the top 3, maybe. It depends on if you prefer Yes Movement or Planet Champion. But this version here is just you're definitely right. It's a nice blend of everything that he was before.
So back to generic questions. Favorite pay-per-view of all time?
Oh, that's a really good one. Favorite pay-per-view of all time? SummerSlam 2002.
Elaborate, please. Because finally it's not WrestleMania X7.
And that's what I said. I thought to myself, I was like, I'm not gonna say you asked a generic wrestling question. I'm not gonna give you a generic wrestling answer because that's why I thought about it, because I was like, I could say WrestleMania 17. I could have also went with Wrestle Kingdom 12, which is my personal favorite Wrestle Kingdom with
the
Okada.
Jericho one.
Yeah, Omega and Jericho, Okada and Naito, the 4-way for the IWGP Junior Heavyweight Championship. My personal favorite Wrestle Kingdom of the last couple of years, because I only became a New Japan fan in like 2014. AEW's had plenty of them, whether it be Double or Nothing 2019, All Out 2021. I was just there live for Full Gear 2021, top to bottom, one of the best wrestling cards I've ever seen. SummerSlam 2002 is like when I was a teenager and I was starting to finally understand why I liked wrestling. Like when I was a kid, it was, you believe in these guys. You think they're like superheroes or like sports athletes. When you become a teenager, you're either going to float out of it or you're going to finally understand why you enjoy it. And SummerSlam 2002 just had so many things that I just loved at that time. The Shawn Michaels Triple H match, which I feel is the greatest SummerSlam matchup of all time, with that video package. It's just great, even though none of the build up.
It's up there for me, but I'm English, so it has to be Bulldog versus Bret Hart.
I totally understand. That's in my top 3, top 4 for sure. But yeah, this one, that's my favorite, that non-sanctioned match, even though the build-up made no type of sense. Brock being...
didn't he put his head through a window, but then act like he didn't do it or something?
Yeah, he was the most obvious person that put his head through the window, but then he tried to act like it wasn't him. And then all of a sudden they did like the video that was like, oh, you got to get it closer. Dude. And then Shawn Michaels like, it was you, and Triple H is like, you're damn right, it was me.
Oh yeah, and that's the spitting out gum promo.
It's great stuff. It's great stuff, ladies and gentlemen. Check it out if you haven't already. But
is that just the one where he has? Oh, I need to breathe now. I need to stop breathing again. That's the one where he is like, Shawn Michaels is like, it was you.
Yeah.
And then he's spitting out gum and he's like, you're damn right, it was me.
Exactly. They put the cool they put the cool music behind it and everything. It's great stuff. Great stuff. Go out of your way to watch it. Brock winning his first title, becoming the youngest reigning champion over The Rock with that crowd response was amazing. The opener with Rey Mysterio and Kurt Angle. You had RVD versus Chris Benoit. You had Chris Jericho versus Ric Flair. You had Edge versus Eddie Guerrero. Like top to bottom, one of the greatest pay-per-views you will ever watch. So I'm going to go with SummerSlam.
The only thing I don't like on that pay-per-view is you had that very weird Howard Finkel segment.
Oh, yes. There was a weird Fink segment. There was, Test versus Undertaker was not that bad, but could have done without that.
It's still fun.
Yeah, still fun. Booker T and Goldust versus the Un-Americans was fun.
Oh, yes. So we talked about a wrestling video package before we both burst out laughing. So what's your favorite wrestling video package of all time?
Favorite wrestling video package of all time. I got to say him again. Bryan Danielson, the Monster video package ahead of WrestleMania 30.
I agree. My favorite, funny enough.
It's either that or if there was one, if you had to put my arm behind my back, pull a bullet to my head or whatever you want to do. If you want to force me to pick another one, it's running down that hill, the Shawn Michaels versus The Undertaker, WrestleMania 26. It's not even the video package for the match. It's the video package before Undertaker accepts the challenge, and they play Place Bo running down that hill.
Oh yeah, that's a brilliant one. Favorite storyline in wrestling currently, and then of all time.
Currently, it just culminated, but I still gotta mention it.
I know where this is going.
It's the Hangman Page journey to the AEW World Championship. It was just so intricate, so many things that they call back to and they remind you of, and it makes your investment as a fan just really feel worthwhile. So I gotta mention that one as far as like current ones, even though it just finished up. Another one that seemingly just finished up, but I feel like we're going to go through it longer. Well, two others is MJF and Darby Allin, their feud, which has been great over the pillars of AEW, and their match at Full Gear was absolutely
match of the night, in my opinion.
Tremendous. That finish was superb with the headlock takeover. And Eddie Kingston and CM Punk, their feud has been amazing. So those are the ones that I enjoyed the most. I can't really mention one in WWE right now. I was into Roman and Brock, but they've kind of put a pause on that. But outside of that, I can't really mention.
I'm going to be honest. I haven't watched WWE in over a year, so I can't either.
You're lucky for you because you do interviews. You don't need to watch anything current, so that's good.
No, just to let you know about me, I'm an AEW guy and an AEW diehard now. Don't even have the network anymore for WWE.
Oh, they're gonna get mad at you for that. They want you to embrace the peacock.
But it's just launched over here in the UK, and I'm scared, man.
I would be too. There's a lot of things wrong there.
Yeah. So going back to generic wrestling questions. Have I asked you favorite match of all time?
No, you haven't. Favorite match of all time. There's a lot of these where I'm just gonna be like two come to mind, so I have to mention both of them.
That's fine.
And when you say that, I think of Kenny Omega versus Kazuchika Okada, Dominion 2018, the fourth match between the two, the 69-minute classic. And
that's 2 out of 3 falls one.
Yeah, 2 out of 3 falls.
Mm-hmm.
And Stone Cold Steve Austin versus Bret the Hitman Hart, WrestleMania 13, the submission match. Those are my favorite two and what I consider the greatest 2 matches in wrestling history.
Just to peel the curtain back, that interview would have aired by the time this one goes out. But I did an interview yesterday at time of recording, and that one came up. WrestleMania 13 came up again, sort of thing.
Nice. That's an all-time classic. That pay-per-view is not very good. So the only thing to retain from there is Bret versus Austin.
The Street fight isn't that bad.
Yeah, the Chicago Street Fight is not that bad. I didn't mind Owen and Bulldog versus Vader and Mankind either. But yeah, other than that,
Fair enough. Final generic wrestling question. Because this will air in 2022, what are some of your goals for Wrestling Daily and Tru Heel Heat in 2022? Actually, I've run out of generic wrestling questions, so this is a different one. Like,
okay.
what are some of your goals for 2022 with Tru Heel Heat and Wrestling Daily, and just stuff like that, really?
With Tru Heel Heat, we just launched our Patreon, patreon.com/Tru Heel Heat. So we want to grow there. We just got our first couple of Patreons, so we want to set a goal for 2022 on like how many Patreons we won throughout the year, so we can further grow there, where we do more exclusive content. We cover New Japan Pro Wrestling over there because New Japan is a little bit copyright sensitive on
They're
YouTube.
funny with YouTube, aren't they?
Yeah. So we keep it over on Patreon. We also do post shows for Tru Heel Heat flagship podcast, as well as True Rewind. So we're gonna have plenty of more content over there on the Patreon. As far as our YouTube channel, we wanted to further grow. I think we're putting out enough content, so we don't want to put out even more content that's just overload. We want to keep it consistent with the content that we're already putting out there, and we just want to further grow. I think if we are able to hit our goal of 2K, we want to hit 5K in 2022, get those lofty goals out there, and just keep the growth of Tru Heel Heat that's already started, keep it going. And Wrestling Daily, hit 15K, be a part of WrestleMania War Games, and whoop Wrestle Talk's booty. Those are all the goals
I'd like
for
to
Wrestling.
see that.
For Wrestling Daily, we want to hit our 15K goal. Adam Bompier put it out there for us to have Quizlemania War Games against the fellas over at Wrestle Talk. I respect each and every one of them. Luke Owen opened the forbidden door for me to Wrestle Talk, and he is the DAD for a reason. He's a great new dad. Pete Quinnell's a very smart individual and one of the hardest working guys in wrestling media that doesn't get enough credit.
Plug.
Yeah.
Check out my interview with him currently that's on the channel right now.
There you go. Ali created this whole conglomerate of Wrestle Talk, so he deserves all the credit in the world. He's the Vince McMahon of wrestling YouTube, in my opinion. So they have a great squad over there, but they can't match Wrestling Daily. You got me, the guy that's seen every match ever. You got Alice McCarthy, the face of UK wrestling journalism. You got Stephanie Chase, Miss Dynamite, Lady Rampage, the most outspoken woman in wrestling media, and you got Sat E Nyangi, the new boy in town, Mr. Energy, Mr. No Days Off. He's gonna keep it going. So we got a squad unlike any other, and it's something that Wrestle Talk can't compete with. So those are the goals for Wrestling Daily and Tru Heel Heat. And Tom is going to hit that 1K and 2K and 3K in 2022 as well.
I don't know. I'd like to, but that's a lot of pressure.
I'm putting the pressure on you, brother. You've been putting the pressure on me with the questions. I'm turning it back on you, and I'm setting the goal. We can start with 1K. We can hit 1K, and then you got to set a new goal. So the goal for 2022 for Tom's YouTube channel is 1K. You heard it here first.
Definitely. So the final question that I always wrap up all of my interviews with is, obviously, with YouTube, with podcasting, with media in general, we're all sort of gonna live forever in some ways. So what is one video that you're like, or podcast that you're like, don't watch that, I've grown a lot since then? And then what is one that, if the people want to check out your body of work, they should definitely check out?
That's a great question. I used to have YouTube videos that was like that over on another channel, but that's actually been taken down. So thumbs up to that. But if you're talking about the Tru Heel Heat YouTube channel, I would say check out my earlier interviews. I had my first couple of interviews that I ever did were at a Battle Club Pro event, I believe in 2017. 2017, 2018. Yeah, 2018, actually. I did one with Austin Theory, one with Mia Yim, and one with Santana and Ortiz. I would check out those to kind of see where I started as far as my interviews. And then if you want to see where I'm at now, you can check out my interview with Thunder Rosa from last year, where we went really in depth about her whole journey in professional wrestling and how she got to where she was at that point last year. And I would check out any episode of Tru Heel Heat, or just come over to our YouTube channel, check out the Saturday podcast, 11:05 a.m. Eastern time, 4:05 p.m. UK. And I think you gotta get the sense of where I'm at now, as far as in a show that I kind of do the control, write the script, have a lot of control on, despite the big team that we have. I think you can kind of see where I'm at as a podcaster or YouTuber there. So any of those would be the best place to start.
Is there anything that you don't want the people to check out?
Like I said, the
Stuff that got taken down anyway.
Yeah, they got taken down, but as far as like, I'm just like, oh man, I wasn't as confident as I am now when I was there. Is probably my interview with Mia Yim. I was very not confident at that time, and she had just signed with WWE, so there were certain questions you kind of had to skip over or couldn't really ask. I was nervous at the time, so if you push me and have to force the answer out of me, that would be the one.
Fair enough. So as we say, man, like, I want to thank you for your time, SP3, for coming on.
Thank you.
If you guys like this video, please like, share, and subscribe, and I will see you in the next one. Bye.